All right, we are live. Hello, hello. I'm Micaela, host of the Children's Book Marketing Podcast, and I have a very special guest
Mhm.
today. She is a fellow children's book author, a blogger, and a podcaster, none other than the Charnaie Gordon. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Michaela, for having me. First of all, excuse the hat today. I was telling Michaela today is a wash day, and so I'm deep conditioning underneath here. So,
No worries. I will join you in the hat love
yes,
because sometimes it's just a day. I will go on record saying I will do two of three things. I will do hair, or I will do makeup, or I will iron.
yes,
Today, we got makeup and iron.
right, right. So that's what's going on in here. But yes, so I am Charnaie Gordon, as Michaela said. Well, first of all, I'm a wife and a mom. Wife, geez, and then I have two kids. I'm like, how many kids do I have? Two kids. My kids are currently ages 8 and 9, and our family resides in the state of Connecticut, my home state. I'm born and raised here. My educational background is actually in IT, computer science, and information technology. And I previously worked as a computer programmer for over 15 years. I was at my previous job for 14 years. And prior to that, I was at another job for like 5 years. So yeah, I have over 15 years of IT experience. Um, but in the summer of 2020, when the pandemic hit, I started working for myself. So I'm currently working as a full-time content creator, entrepreneur, author, speaker. I also run a 501c3 nonprofit, and I'm a podcast host and an author. Did I say that already?
You did, but there's so many layers to you and what you do, and that is encouraging because a lot of us think we write a book and that's all there is to it. But the way you've decided to pivot into other avenues to have an impact, be it on the nonprofit side or in the content creation world, I feel is something that more children's book authors should be aware of. That way, we can be motivated to do other things in our passion. So, a lot of the people who get into the space say, you know what, I'll just post everything on social media and leave it at that. But that's not
Mm,
what you decided to do.
no.
You are a bona fide blogger, and I'm not talking about just an episode here or there, an article published here or there. I'm talking about blog exists. It is the surface level for everything else that is going on, but it goes deep because it connects with readers and it connects with authors. Tell us a little bit about your approach to blogging.
Right. So the blog is so interesting when I think about it because I started it really just out of a place of needing and wanting a creative outlet when my
Mm-hmm.
kids were ages 1 and 2. So I had my kids close together. But I felt like I needed something to do. And so it was just a creative space for me to kind of like escape from changing diapers and breastfeeding, all of the things in those early days of motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a fun thing for me, and it still is a fun thing for me. But in those early days, I really didn't have the intention to turn it into a business. I didn't even know, first of all, I didn't even know you could monetize a blog. I was so naive, I guess, in the beginning. But it's like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I just started the blog, really just because I love to write, I love to read, and I love to write. And I wanted to share the diverse book recommendations with other parents, some of my friends who was always asking me what I was reading with my kids, and then just people who wanted to know what I was reading as well. And so that's really the motivation behind starting the blog. And that was February 2015. So it's been almost 7 years now coming up on it. And So my approach to blogging was really just to have fun with it. I've been having fun with it. And I think that's what's really kind of kept me still in the game and still keeping me going. And now, especially that this is my full-time job, but I'm still just having fun. I'm still having fun with it. And I write about things that speak to me, books that speak to me that I want to share with others. Of course, there is the monetized side of it where I do sometimes work on brand campaigns, paid brand campaigns and stuff like that. But for the most part, the blog is really just me and my own thoughts, or me just talking about things that I enjoy, books that I enjoy in particular.
Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit about, considering it spawned into something that was much larger than you intended. At the time, your life looked a lot different.
Yes.
How have you grown in the management of your blog, given now that you have multiple roles in addition to motherhood?
Yeah. I mean, I literally do everything by myself. I do not have a team. A lot of people think, oh, I have a team. No, I don't. It's just me. It's just me. And so I run all of my social media on my own. I don't have a virtual assistant or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's pretty manageable. Mostly because I schedule out. I'm a very particular about scheduling things. And so for the content that I know that I want to put out, I put it on a schedule. And, I ensure that every week I'm scheduling the things that I need to have done. And sometimes it takes a while to do that because I'll take like a couple of hours on a Sunday, usually is when I'll do my planning for the week. But I figure, it takes me like 3 to 4 hours to do that. But then once it's done, and I can literally just go on about my week. Sometimes there are things that come up during the week that I have to kind of manage a little bit better because, nothing ever really goes according to plan. There's always something, especially when you have kids. But for the most part, I just kind of manage it really because I plan it out, and that helps me to not really get overwhelmed too much. But there are days when I do feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, like I feel like because I'm so disciplined with doing my schedule on a Sunday for like that 3 to 4 hours, I can pretty much manage the rest of my week.
Gotcha. Now, because the blog is kind of like at the center of everything that is really core to what's important to you, share a little bit about why you recommend having a blog, because you also have a podcast, which is an alternate way to reach people. And if you use your blog differently than you do your podcast.
Yeah, so the podcast is the way that I'm using the podcast is to introduce my followers or my audience to more of these amazing authors and illustrators and just bookish people in general that they may want to know a little bit more about. I primarily feature a lot of kid lit authors and illustrators, but I have interviewed a couple of like people who write diverse books for adults or for young adults as well. So, but it's really just taking a deeper dive into the content that I'm already sharing. So I share a lot of these authors and illustrators' books on my blog and on my Instagram. But on the podcast, it allows me to go a little bit deeper and find out more personal stuff about these authors. It also allows me to find out interesting projects that they're working on. I can also find out what's their writing process, what's their creative process, and what's a typical day look like for them, right? And about their family life, things that they enjoy doing, things that they think could be done differently, like in the publishing world. So it just allows me to have more deeper conversations with these authors and illustrators that I love to feature on social media, but really just want to get to know them a little bit better. So that's how I'm using the podcast. As far as the blog, it's really More so, I use that more for like sometimes sponsored campaigns, and book reviews or product reviews.
Hmm. So when you look at how you're using the blog,
Yeah.
for an author who does not have yet a blog that exists, what would you recommend are the first things that they should do to get started and to keep the momentum going?
If they want to start a blog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that authors should have a blog. Even like, I think they should have like their personal website, right? About just them, their professional author stuff, their books, all of that. How people can purchase their books, right? You need all of that kind of stuff. How people can contact you on social media.
Right.
But then if you want to, because I think authors are already creative, right? They have this creative mind. I think a blog allows people to see a different side of you, right? And it doesn't have to necessarily be about books or writing or, anything related to literature. You could start a blog, maybe you want to talk about like I don't know, if you're a pet lover, or if you love um, hiking, or, whatever, like different things that you enjoy. I see most authors who do have a blog, usually they're talking about their creative process, or giving like tips to authors, things that like different tools that they may use, different apps, those kinds of things. I think people are always interested in that kind of stuff. um, but also different maybe marketing tips, how to market your book, things that have worked well for them in the past, that maybe, or things that may not have worked so well in the past, right? So I think there's different ways that you can actually leverage a blog as an author, but it's really just kind of up to you and finding that specific niche that you want to talk about.
Yeah. I found that, and it's really difficult for me because I've got the persona who is Micaela, the marketing coach, the podcast host, but then there's Micaela, the author. And having two blogs and a podcast was overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, what I decided to do with the book audience, the audience of people who are interested in the children's book, is speak more to moms,
Right.
particularly moms who homeschool, because that's the life that I'm familiar with. And
Yeah.
it almost is therapeutic sometimes because there's this outlet for me to talk about something aside from marketing. Not that I don't love it, and
Right.
I do,
Right.
but it's also about activities. It's also about parenting and just exploring things with your kids and taking that time. So whenever people think about, having a blog as an author, it seems like the default is always, let's talk about how to become an author.
Yeah.
But you show that there's so much more variety that can exist there. So I'm glad you pointed out that there are other things that can be the focal point of the blog.
There are, there
Yeah.
are. I mean, like I said, I think, authors are creative, and it doesn't, you know, make, maybe you might think most people might want to hear that from you. And yeah, they might, right? Like they might want to know creative tips on how to write better, or how to illustrate better, right? For sure, people are always looking for that kind of information, but I think there is something to be said about like just getting to know you as a person, right?
Yeah.
And maybe just a different side of you that doesn't involve writing or illustrating, if you're an illustrator. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so we've got this amazing blog, and we're calling it a blog, but we should really be calling it something else because it has an immense following. How the blog and the author life, mom life live are in one space. But let's talk about your nonprofit.
Mm,
That takes from another area that you're passionate about, and it's important to me that you and I get to have this conversation because, of course, I've mentioned to you in our conversations previously that I have a desire to be in the nonprofit world,
yes.
but I've run into a lot of other authors who do as well. And there are people who are in this space who are
Mhm.
curious about what the parameters are from what I'm telling. or I should say, from what I'm seeing,
Yeah,
it's limitless.
it is.
How did you decide what you wanted to focus on for your nonprofit? And if you could tell a little bit about some of the major wins you've had with it, because that speaks a lot to the impact.
For sure. Yeah. So the way that I kind of came into the nonprofit space was kind of not really intentional in the beginning.
Hmm.
So in 2018, I had an idea and I knew that I wanted my children to be involved in this thing that I was building, right? And again, in 2018, I was still at my corporate job and I wasn't doing this full time, but I was just really just having fun with this, right? And I was building this amazing audience on the side without even really like intending to or trying to, but people were enjoying it and I was enjoying it. And so I said, well, I want to get my kids involved in this too, because my kids, they see me, blogging all the time or taking pictures or, writing something. And they would sometimes pose as like my models for me, like holding up a book or whatever for my pictures and stuff. Um, and they seem to enjoy it. And so I said, well, let me think about how I could get my kids kind of more involved without just using them for pictures and stuff in a more meaningful way. And so I came up with this idea, the concept for 50 States, 50 Books, which is the name of the nonprofit. And initially, it just started out as a family initiative, a fun family project where we were going to see if we could collect 50 diverse and inclusive books for kids ages birth to 17, and then donate those books, 50 books at a time, to each of the 50 US states. And we were just going to just try to just do it one time and see if we could just do it. And so I went out and I found somebody to just do a logo. I created the website on my own because, I do the IT stuff. So within like 2 days, I had everything up and running. We had the logo done, we had the website up and running, and I just started talking about it. I just used my Instagram stories,
Hmm.
and I just started talking about it in my stories.
Okay.
And then I did a post about it on Instagram, and I just said, "Hey, everybody, I have this idea. I don't know if it's gonna work, but it's a fun family initiative, and we're gonna try to see if we can collect 2,500 books and donate them all across America to kids that are in need of diverse books." And I remember the day that I first shared, and I was like, oh my God, I don't even know if people are going to be into this. I got 1,500 followers in one day on my kids' page, just for me talking about it and just for me posting like their logo on their page. And people were like really excited about it. And I said, okay, well, I might have something here.
Yeah, that's amazing in one day.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so, anyway, fast forward, we're now a 501c3. So initially we weren't, we were just doing this for fun, like I said. Then I had the idea earlier this year to formalize it and create a nonprofit. And so that's what we did. And so now we are a registered 501c3. But some of the major wins that we've had, we've gotten press out of this from like Huffington Post, Moneyish. We were featured on Time for Kids. And then, our local news station twice. We went to our local news station. So there's the press aspect of it. There is the of course, you can now that we are 501c3, you can get paid. Like I could pay myself a salary from this, right?
Yes.
We're not there yet. But that is the ultimate goal, is to be able to pay myself and even my kids a salary from doing this work, right?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. There's also nonprofit like benefits. You can get discounted software. You can get Canva for free. Hello.
Yes, you can.
Canva Premium for free. All you need is that 501c3. And it's not easy to get, I will say. we had to hire an attorney. Well, we didn't have to, but I wanted to do it that way. We hired an attorney because I was like, you know what? I just want to make sure that everything is done right. So we hired an attorney to help us formalize it. It didn't cost a lot of money, but the attorney that we worked, the law firm that we worked with was amazing. And so they helped us do it all right, and we're all set up.
Mm-hmm.
And now, we can leverage that. We can start applying for grants. There's all of these amazing benefits that come from having a 501c3.
Yeah. Now, because you have not yet been able to apply for grants, but you can now.
Right.
Funding has been primarily through donation.
That's right.
When you get the press, of course, that helps.
Yes.
In addition to that, because you are well connected in the author community, can you talk about how maybe that's also helped to fuel your interest on the nonprofit side?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the connections that I've made over the years have literally been amazing. Connections with celebrities who are interested in our work, or my work as just like, here we read. But then they found out, oh my God, you have a nonprofit. How can I help? How can I support? And so I'm going to start leveraging those opportunities come next year. But I mean, people are really genuinely just excited when they find out that you have, and then it's like, oh my God, now that I have this, I can help somebody else who might be interested. It's like, hey, here's what we did. Here's how we're using it. And here are some of the perks that you can kind of take advantage of from having this. But yeah, the connections that we've made have just been amazing, literally.
I think that you mentioned your blog starting in 2015. Between then and now, it didn't happen overnight.
No. None of this was overnight. That's the thing. I've been doing this for a long time. So not as long as, other people, but I think I'm almost coming up on 7 years of consistent. And that's the thing that has really made me like know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Because like I said, it started out as a passion project, but I remained consistent.
Yeah.
And I didn't I do have days, obviously, where I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? But those are few and far between. And I can honestly say, like, the stuff that I'm doing now, I genuinely love. Right. I love talking about books, and I'm getting paid to talk about books. I mean, like, that's amazing, right?
It doesn't get any better than that.
Right.
Who doesn't want to show up in their home office to make that happen?
Right. So,
yeah.
It's been good. It's been good. And then I get to have fun with my kids too. Like when I do brand, and that's another thing that people might want to think about. If you are an author and if you do have children, you can get yourself involved in like content creation with your children, think about brands that you love or that your kids love that align with your values, and brands that you're already using anyway in your household, right? Like, I'm a brand ambassador for Lakeshore Learning. And I've been working with them this is my second year working with them. And that they are a brand that I love and that I trust. And
I shop there all the time.
Right? I reached out to them, but first I built a relationship, right? Yeah. And this was just me commenting on their stuff on social, me, sending them DMs and, just stuff like that. Like nothing too tough.
Yeah.
But it was just like, and then I think they got to see like, oh, she's always commenting on our stuff, or she's always liking our stuff. And, and then one day I just kind of reached out and I just was bold enough to send an email to introduce myself. And they responded and said, wow, we love what you're doing. And we would love for you to be one of our brand ambassadors.
Love it. I'm going to have to do a detailed deep dive into brand sponsorship, because it's something that I don't think a lot of people realize they could be doing in our space, but also because the alignment with the book and the potential for marketing to the audience that overlaps between the readers and the people who are also supporting these brands is immense.
It is.
There's direct alignment in ways that I can't tell you how many times I've done a live and I'm on their radar. We'll see how this all works out, but I can't tell you how many times I've done a live or stories during coloring time
Yeah.
between my son and I when we're at the homeschool learning table and we are all into Crayola's box.
Right.
All
Yeah.
of the boxes.
Yeah. So reach out to Crayola, right? It's like,
oh, absolutely. Already done.
build that relationship over time, like I said, and then just, reach out and see what happens. That's what I did,
There's so many. And I think too, because you have been in this for 7 years, and a lot of the listeners to the Children's Book Marketing podcast have been in this maybe a year or two. What final words would you give us of advice so that the concept of this being a marathon and not a sprint gives some immediate reward for even what will be put in position for later?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, for me, consistency, right? That is always, I think, going to win in the end. And sometimes it's going to get hard. It really is. And like I said, I've had days where even like just like 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm done with social media. I don't want to do this anymore. Like because you get comments sometimes from people that you don't really like.
Yeah.
And you might want to say some things that might not be very kind.
Yeah.
So I always kind of like have to take a step back and just say, okay, whenever I'm looking at my phone or an email that someone sends me, it's like, take a step back, think about it, breathe, and then come back to it. But I would say just be consistent. If it's something that you are really interested in, stick with it. Even when it gets hard, even when you don't feel like doing it anymore, even when you get a nasty message or a nasty email, keep going. That has literally kept me in the game. Just by showing up. By showing up. And I think when people see that you are going to show up, they'll learn to trust you. And they'll know like if you're genuine or not, but I think really just consistency is the name of the game.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that consistency is something that I practice and preach.
Yes.
Because it's not just for everybody who's listening. That one was for me as well. Charnaie, where can everybody find you, where you hang out, and where you most often communicate with your audience?
I am mostly on Instagram. That is my spot. I'm not on TikTok. I don't do the ticking and talking. I don't do TikTok, but I'm mostly on Instagram under the username Here We Read, and that's we with 2 E's. So HEREWEEREAD. Occasionally I'm on Facebook. I don't really like Facebook, but I have a Facebook page and I have a Twitter page. I'm hardly on Twitter, but
and Instagram is probably the place that most people, we go there because it's not Facebook and it's not as involving as TikTok, but because I am recently a converted TikToker.
Are you? Okay.
Oh my goodness. Don't get me started on how much fun I've been having over there.
Really?
but I will make sure I link to all of your places in the show notes. That way folks can find you. And if they have some questions or additional interest in supporting your nonprofit, definitely reach out. Charnaie, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so glad we did this.
Me too.
Thank you so with our twin hats.
Yes.